Welcome to Redacted on this Thursday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
If you're watching the pre-show, because we are live right now, yes, we are live. We have a 30-minute pre-show that we do just to get all the alerts out so that YouTube can send out their alerts, Rumble can send out their alerts, all of that good stuff. And there's a clip right before our show starts where it shows like this 20-something couple like cheersing some champagne, right? And, you know, like a real estate ad. And then right back to back with it is soldiers like marching into another territory.
And then war.
And
right?
war. Yeah, I mean, it is literally like the polar opposites.
But
like,
we're not going to talk about real estate today.
no, we're not. But we are going to talk about...
channel.
We are going to talk about a ton of other stuff, though, because some big updates in Ukraine that we're going to talk about over the past 24 hours. We have the First Lady of Ukraine visiting the White House and speaking in front of Congress. But there's been some developments in the past few hours that we want to talk about there.
We are also going to talk about the changeover of the Italian government. I do think that's a bigger story than maybe Western media would have you think. We're also going to cover a speech from Vladimir Putin where he continues to say that what is going on right now is not just emblematic of the war in Ukraine, but an entire collapse of the West. We're going to break down those words as well.
We're also going to look at Wuhan and manipulating monkeypox. There's been cases, of course, breakout of monkeypox, and the big push is this the next major pandemic? Can the CDC even handle it? Some interesting details about monkeypox. And we're also going to look at Bill Gates. And a lot of people have been wondering, why the hell is Bill Gates buying up all of the land? Not just like some land, all of the farmland. Like, what the hell is actually happening? Well, now members of Congress are demanding answers on this. So we're going to talk about Bill Gates, Microsoft boy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, bringing up Bill Gates as a conspiracy usually gets you labeled a crazy person, but there's stuff here. There's stuff here worth looking at.
I think that ship has sailed on Bill Gates.
You think that we can all just say
I think
something up's there?
Yeah, I think
his money's no longer going to buy positive press from now on, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, once you go to Epstein Island, you know, once you're involved in Ukraine, like he's everywhere. Like Bill Gates is everywhere, and now Congress is demanding answers on this. And by the way, so are certain people in the European Union as well. So we'll get to all of that and more on this Thursday as Redacted starts right now. Turn on your hard light.
During that little musical interlude, Clayton took the opportunity to lecture me about how I was low energy. So you know what I've just done is taken my shoes off and spread my toes. I'm ready to attack.
Nice.
You.
Well, we talk about we joke, you know, because she's like, this is my time of night where it's like getting into bedtime here in Europe in the European hour, and she's like, you know, it's bedtime, and for me, this is when I get going. You know, I got the coffee, I'm excited, and so we joke about what level of energy will Natalie be at tonight. Will she be like as President Trump says, low energy?
Yes,
that guy's low energy,
which is what I don't ever want, right? But one of my favorite comments of all times was when we discussed this, and someone in the chat said, medium energy, and I thought that's good. I'll take it.
That's good.
So I'm aiming for medium plus.
Medium plus.
You know what my favorite comment is?
I ate my own placenta.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I did
exactly.
That. In pill form, guys, not on a pizza.
Come on, man.
Yeah, man, what the hell?
What
the hell just happened?
Is not a curative for coronavirus. I would like to let you know.
Hey, Joe Biden got coronavirus. He got COVID-19.
He did.
Or some version of it. So that's been the breaking news this afternoon out of the White House. The White House
but he
is
told
sort of
everybody
scrambling.
he had cancer.
Right. So what is it? Yesterday he says he has cancer. Then the White House clarifies it. Then now we find out he's got COVID tonight. And there's rumors abound right now. What's going on in Washington? Will Kamala Harris take presidential powers for a short time? Like this happens regularly, right? When Vice President Cheney took over the presidency for an afternoon while George W. Bush went in for had to be put under. The same thing happened with Obama.
Yes.
Right. Biden became president for a short time. So is Kamala Harris going to be president tonight?
Now Reuters.
Can I ask a question though?
Yeah. Ask the question.
Shoot.
Well, if that happens, does that actually count as the first woman president? Like, will she get that accolade then all of a sudden, even though it's only temporary?
Actually, that already happened a few months ago. She technically already did this because he had some procedure. So he was like, he already did this. So yeah, no, I mean, not really. But yeah, I guess technically, yes, technically, but not elected, and has not then been sworn in via the Constitution with a Supreme Court justice actually taking the oath of office, which is what would be.
So she won't get like a Time magazine cover image for that.
She probably will. Time magazine probably will. Like,
she might.
America's lady. It'll be like a.
Reuters is reporting that he has a dry cough, fatigue, and a runny nose as well. So he is symptomatic, and he started to feel yesterday, Wednesday evening. He is boosted. He's double vaccinated and boosted. So
double boosted,
triple vaxxed, whatever else they do in figure skating.
It just sort of shows how different, though, the appetite is for COVID news, because when President Trump tested positive for COVID, we thought, oh, this is the election, right? Because it was right on October 1st. And I remember Clayton and I sat and watched the news as the helicopter took off from the White House lawn and moved towards the hospital. We watched live coverage of the hospital. He was feeling pretty crappy. And it doesn't feel like the news cycle needs to do that. Most of us sort of, even though he, is of an advanced age where it is a bit more scary to be diagnosed with COVID, the White House does seem to indicate that he is on an antiviral and he should recover.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got a busy show for you. Natalie is going to drink some coffee and get up to a medium level energy.
This is it. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
This is what you get.
This is what we got. But we should mention we do have a website. So we had about 1,000 new people sign up for our newsletter that we published first thing in the morning yesterday. So welcome to all of you. Great to have you here. I hope you enjoy the newsletter. It comes out first thing in the morning, Monday through Friday. You can drink it. You can drink it. You can read it while you're drinking your cup of coffee in the morning. You read it about 5-10 minutes. But just go to redacted.inc to sign up. And please make sure that you whitelist our email address. Because, again, somebody else sent me something that Google flagged our newsletter as dangerous.
Yes.
This morning, I got another one that says, Gmail flagged your newsletter as dangerous. I was like, oh, dangerous, really? So make sure that you please whitelist our email address, clayton@redacted.inc. Put it in your contacts list. Put it in your VIP, whatever. That way it won't go to spam, and then Gmail won't label it as dangerous. Really,
you know what really gets me about that?
Don't you want to sing that Roxette song every time you say
dangerous?
That? Hold on tight.
Yeah. What's insane about that?
Well, what's insane about that is, like, we've been told all this time that they don't read our emails, right? But the thing is, how do they know that's dangerous and if they don't have context? Right. You know what I mean? Like, so they're saying out of context that the newsletter is dangerous. So that's just 100% AI. But we know that AI is not capable of being 100% correct. So that means somebody has to be reviewing that stuff, I would think, to make that decision.
We really make an effort. On this show, we will give you a little bit more of our opinion, and we'll ask maybe a bit more leading questions for things that are bothering us. We make an effort not to do that in the newsletter. We really don't want to turn people off. We just want to be thought-provoking.
We want to turn you off here.
Here.
So if you're bothered by our... we don't want to... In the newsletter, we don't want to turn you off. Here, we will absolutely turn you off.
We can't take an opinion and then defend it if someone, I don't want to get into a back and forth in the newsletter. We can absolutely do that in this forum.
In a dialogue, right.
Right. And so we tend to sort of present the information without very much color, I guess. I don't know. Mm-hmm. We use humor. And so, it's, in my opinion... That is not a dangerous product. We go out of our way to be to toe the line.
I always walk away from the newsletter most of it's it's funny, it's good stories. I go down a couple rabbit holes when there's some thought-provoking thing, but I've never ever felt what did they talk about that for? That's dangerous.
You can't say that or whatever.
Yeah, I've never ever once felt that. And that's why I'm where is Google getting that? That makes no sense.
What's dangerous? We had a story this morning about how the U.S. Quidditch Association, which is a thing, it's a sports league based on Quidditch from the Harry Potter novels, has decided to distance itself from J.K. Rowling because of her controversial gender-based tweets.
She believes that women actually exist.
Yes, they call her a TERF. We can dissect what she actually said and whether, you agree with her or not some other time. But now they are labeling the sport quad ball instead of Quidditch, even though it's based on the sport that she created. And they will still use the bludger, the quaffle, and the snitch, right? It's a strange thing. And they play with broomsticks like things between
have you ever
their
seen
legs.
these guys? They run around with broomsticks between their legs.
Because they're muggles. They can't fly, right? Okay. And so that's very dangerous to run around with a stick between your leg at full speed.
I mean, I do it. I've done it my whole life, and I've been fine.
I'm doing it right now.
Well, that's not what I mean, you guys. That's not what I mean. I ate my own placenta.
So,
That's not dangerous, in my opinion, although we have a doctor ringing in saying no.
Yeah, don't do that. Okay.
Well, maybe if it's spoiled. But...
Yeah. Johnny Doe says, what are they talking about? This is not important.
Isn't it?
It's very important. It is, the J.K. Rowling thing is because it's about political correctness, and it's, anyway. So, yes, anyway. Please subscribe to the newsletter. That's what's important. Redacted.inc is the place to go. Okay, let's talk about the main story we're going to focus on today. Over the past 24 hours, something interesting has unfolded in Ukraine. Western media is excited. They're kind of bubbly, actually, about it. It's actually kind of funny to watch all of this. Is the underdog Ukraine right now with all of their U.S. and NATO weapons? Are they finally launching their first major offensive against Russia? Remember, heretofore, they have not launched an offensive, an organized offensive against Russia, right? It's been defensive. They have not done that. Even with all of the weapons and all of the money and all of the 8 years of training from NATO forces, training everyone in that country, right? The CIA planted there, special forces, everything. No advancement, no offensive. So is Russia on the run now overnight? Just watch how CNBC's anchor of record, Shepard Smith, puts it with a smile. Watch.
A turn in the war? Well, Ukrainian forces are now on the offensive as they fight to take back the Russian invaders in a major strategic city. The Ukrainians ramping up attacks around Kherson. That's a key city in southern Ukraine that fell to Putin's troops way back in March. Russian state media report the Ukrainians have been pounding a vital bridge with rockets. It's a critical river crossing. You destroy it, that would cut off a crucial supply line for the Russians and an escape route for Russian troops in Kherson, according to British intelligence. In recent days, we've seen the Ukrainians blow up Russian ammo depots near Kherson. It's suspected that they're using advanced long-range rocket systems supplied by the United States to strike those targets. Today, the Pentagon announcing it's sending to Ukraine even more of the HIMARS rocket systems, as they call them. Ukrainian officials say those weapons have been a real game changer and sent the Russians into what they call panic mode.
Okay, right. Panic mode. Really? Panic mode? That sort of contradicts, actually, what General Mark Milley just said literally yesterday, on the same day as this report. That is that this is a war of attrition, and we haven't yet lost eastern Ukraine. We haven't really made any gains. We just haven't lost it yet. Here's the general. Listen.
So the bottom line is the cost is very high. The gains are very low. There is a grinding war of attrition that is occurring in the Luhansk, Donbass region, the two oblasts of Donbass. And to answer your question about is the Donbass lost? No, it's not lost yet.
No, it's not lost yet, but we're going to continue to send more of those long-range weapons, as you're seeing on your screen, right? We're going to continue to send more of those.
The cost is high and the gains are low. Yeah. We're putting a lot into it and not really making a lot of progress.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Well, and these are the weapons that they just said that we're not sending, right? Didn't they just say they weren't sending them?
Oh, no, now they say they are sending them. So these long-range advanced weapons that we're just showing there on the screen. Again, these are the high, not those specifically.
The bottom line is.
Sorry, I clipped at the end there like additional video of it to talk over, but my fault for not letting everyone know about that ahead of time. Anyway, so those long-range weapons specifically now they're going to be funneling another round of these long-range HIMARS weapons into Ukraine. About another 4 of them or so. We've now admitted that we're going to send in there, right? And so the idea is, though, that this would be a game changer. But according to Ukrainian authorities this afternoon, the only way it would actually change the game, according to Ukraine, is if they had 100 of them. 100 of them. So they're getting 4 of them now. They're getting additional 4.
That is not 100.
No.
That's long off that mark. You know, later in the Shepard Smith piece, they talk about how many Ukrainians are fleeing their cities and they're doing so on bicycles. And then the reporter goes in and she sort of makes her interpretation and says, well, a lot of them had these white ribbons wrapped around their bicycles, which they hoped to show the Russian army peace, which is interesting. And I thought, okay, but that's your interpretation. Do you know that for a fact? Because the Russian army wears white armbands to show that so are they showing that they're Russian, or are they, like, again, this is all open for interpretation. And if you don't know, right, we don't know.
Well, here's what's not open for interpretation. The propaganda is so thick that you can cut it with a knife. Yesterday in Washington, Olena Zelenska, that's her name, Zelenska, not Zelensky. It's Olena Zelenska. That's Zelensky's wife. Okay, she's the first lady of Ukraine. She was in Washington. She met privately, first of all, with Jill Biden, the first lady. They met at the White House privately, where we, according to the White House officials, we assured her that we would be sending more weapons. So then she goes in front of Congress. She gives an address in front of Congress. And this is what she had to say, asking for more weapons. Watch.
Я звертаюся до вас від імені усіх загиблих.
I am asking for something now I would never want to ask. I am asking for weapons. Weapons that would not be used to wage a war on somebody else's land, but to protect one's home and the right to wake up alive in that home. I'm asking for air defense systems in order for rockets not to kill children in their strollers.
I mean, okay, so that's what we're doing now. Like, that's what we're gonna do. Like, that's how we're gonna lay this out. We need you to send us more weapons.
At least she's not just wearing a T-shirt.
She makes it well. Okay, but let's give credit where credit's due. She makes a beautiful. She. I don't know what I was gonna say.
She makes a beautiful what?
Well. She makes a nice presentation, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a
very
sales
heartfelt. It's heartfelt, and you know, she's a good
It's like
speaker.
at the beginning of the show, we do a clip of the girl that's begging for help with the Iranian or the Iraqi babies. You know, it's very heartfelt, but it's
funny you say that. That was exactly when I heard that. Like, we got to stop killing babies in strollers. Like, that's what I heard, right? And when I heard that, I immediately thought of Iraq and the incubators, right? Which was a total fabrication and a total lie, of course, and then ended up coming out later as finding out that we know the whole scam there in Iraq.
Well, and I want to say one more thing before, and I got to go, but like, it's kind of ironic that Putin says, don't send any of these long-range missiles, right? And then all of a sudden, the next day we're saying, hey, guess what? We're sending long-range missiles. We're sending the exact thing that he just told us not to send. And not only that, we're sending 4 of them, but now Ukraine wants 100 of them. It's like, how much more provocative do you just keep provoking this man who's telling you exactly what he's going to do, and he's done exactly what said he was going to do. Why would you keep doing that?
Yes, but I think it's important for us to acknowledge that, sure, children are dying, men are dying, women are dying, right? This is a war. This is a war that involves blood. And so support for it on any side means you support some kind of necessary dying. And that is not our stance here. We are absolute peacemongers on this show.
So Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector, says that Europe is going to pay the price for these weapons now, these additional HIMARS that we're sending in there, these additional long-range weapons that we're sending into Ukraine. We can't track them, as he points out. We can't track them. And now they're sort of scrambling right now to try to figure out a way to track them. And he says, again, these are all being sold, or many of them are being sold on the black market. Listen.
The world is waking up to the fact that we're not just arming Ukraine, we're arming every terrorist organization in the world, anybody with a grudge, anybody who wants to use these weapons to carry out political assassinations or just plain murder. Now the United States, together with NATO, is actively working with Ukraine to try and come up with a way to account for these weapons. But it's too late. The cat's out of the bag. The weapons are on the market. And at some point in time, the United States and Europe are going to pay the price for the folly of turning over to the most corrupt nation in Europe some of the most advanced weapon systems known to mankind.
And that corruption was pretty well on display this week, right?
Yes, there was 2 senior politicians inside of the Zelensky government who were not fired, but asked to resign and then voted out of parliament, sort of highlighting the fact that there continues to be corruption inside Ukraine. The West knew about this until it pretended that it didn't. And in fact, regarding tracking those weapons, just last week, there were senior officials inside of the Pentagon saying a lot of times these weapons are sent to Poland and then they meet somebody at the Ukrainian border and they are being put in private cars, you guys. So talking about...
And private trucks, like a flatbed truck.
Some sort of official, military vehicles and some not so much, right? So someone like me could get in the carpool line and just say, yeah, load it up.
Load it up. I'm here with my pickup truck. Please fill up my truck. I am member of military. Please, I'm telling you.
Oh, just move the car seat over. I'll take some. Sure.
Right.
In the back of my mom-mobile.
Move, honey, move the Captain Crunch. Move that stuff over and the toilet paper we picked up at Costco. Put HIMARS in my back trunk.
Your accent's ridiculous.
I don't even know what accent that is, to be honest with you.
You need to.
I just like the idea of somebody like stuffing billions of dollars of explosive like short range missiles and surface to air missiles in the back of like a Renault Encore, like a Renault hatchback or something like that. Just tossing it in there.
And the back,
like, no, it's good. It's good.
The back axle just breaks. Like, oh man.
And I put one of those,
javelins
I'll just
out of there.
rip a red flag and then tie it on the end in case so anybody knows.
Right. It's too long. It's too long for this car. Please, police officers, do not pull me over. I know I have a couple of javelins that are sticking out of the back of the truck. Don't pull me over until I get home.
It's okay. They have an American flag on them. They were sent in an official capacity. I can have those.
Ix in the chat says Clayton could be a Slav with a bit more accent practice. I'll try. I'll work on it.
No.
Someone else says that I need to shave, that my Sonny Crockett look from Miami Vice isn't cutting it. I hate shaving. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I do it occasionally. I do it every few days. But so this was a major report this afternoon that NATO doesn't trust Ukraine with HIMARS operating advanced artillery themselves. This is a stunning report. According to information received from sources in the Ukrainian armed forces, at least 2 HIMARS are operating in the southern direction, with the remaining 10 dispersed in the northern arc in the area of active hostilities in the Donbass. The crews of the artillery installations are manned by out-of-staff NATO military personnel, it says, and guarded. I'll even show you this quote here on my screen, Philip, if you want. The crews of the artillery installations are manned by out-of-staff NATO military personnel and guarded by private military contractors close to the Pentagon. So they don't trust them to even be using the equipment that we're sending to them.
Well, I guess that's one way to track it is attach it to a person that you do trust, right?
Here's one way to track it. Don't give it to them.
You didn't want to slap an RFID tag on it. So instead, it always stays with Jim here.
Right. It's on loan to you for the afternoon.
And we trust Jim.
So we'll be watching it. So again, this is NATO military personnel. This is outstaffed career NATO military personnel. Further, the source indicated that targets are selected using U.S. military satellites, and that we did know this, of course, that the HIMARS operate in a shoot and scoot manner, quickly changing their positions after firing to avoid return fire, and then they're never returning to the positions where they've previously been deployed. So as one source in the military that I spoke to, a former NATO pilot, told me, yeah, you absolutely need you need boots on the ground and you need eyes that are actually registering targets. Mm-hmm. It's not like back in the day where you'd paint them with a laser, like we painted the target. No, we now actually have to provide those coordinates, and those coordinates need to come from somewhere. And of course, we know that they're coming from the United States. But now we're not even letting them use our equipment. We are there actively using the equipment. Like, this should be absolutely troubling to people. Like, make no mistake about it. Like, we are in a war with Russia. We are there actively in a war. We're just using their land to do it. It's a proxy war. This is exactly what it is.
Yes. And so, it's interesting, this sort of giddiness about just bombing a bridge, but you obviously, according to those images, haven't bombed it so much that pedestrians can't cross it in their,
Right.
that's a strange little bit of it. And it's hard for us as news consumers to understand exactly what's going on if the media wants to just get super excited about maybe one bridge while Pentagon officials are telling us we actually don't feel like we're making ground at all.
Make sure you smash that like button. It really helps us when you push us out further into the algorithm on YouTube and on Rumble. If you're watching us on Rumble, you're watching us on YouTube. Did we put up a poll or not? I don't know if we put up a poll. We couldn't maybe decide on it today. We were wondering, one of the questions I asked in the pre-show was, hey, which country do you think is about to collapse next? Because I can't really keep track of the countries that
The
are about to
dominoes are falling.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're also going to talk about Vladimir Putin just gave a speech specifically about the West and the plundering of poor countries to enrich itself. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about Wuhan and monkeypox, the Wuhan lab and monkeypox. Plus, we're also going to be talking about Bill Gates buying up all of this farmland. We got some really interesting data about all of that. But first, let's talk about Italy and let's talk about Argentina. And let's talk about Italy. Let's talk about Argentina. And over the past few weeks, we've been seeing a number of world governments collapsing right before our eyes, right? We saw Sri Lanka. We've been covering Sri Lanka here on the show, right? You cut off fertilizer, you run up prices dramatically in Sri Lanka. And of course, their people then can't buy gasoline.
Yes.
Their way of life is destroyed. What other countries have collapsed in the past few weeks that we were trying to keep track of here?
Okay.
How about Netherlands?
Well, I don't know about collapse, right? But have
runaway inflation.
Well, most of the West has runaway inflation. In fact, the UK is kind of just tracking everything what America does. 9% inflation, sure, we'll do that too.
Well,
Same
what about
with
Ecuador?
Canada.
Ecuador?
Okay.
Ecuador. Oh, you saw Panama today. Panama also like on fire. That there's what about you mentioned the United States, Canada, for crying out loud.
Yeah, it does
next?
seem like these patterns are being replicated all across the West, right? High government spending, high levels of inflation, sanctions on things that your population is used to being able to access readily, such as certain foods and gasoline, right? All of these things are creating this sort of pressure cooker of economic, plus coming off of a pandemic, right, where most people are still not recovered economically. And look what's happening. Politicians are being held accountable. I mean, it's really something when you think about. Now we've seen Boris Johnson be held accountable. I mean, the thing that he resigned over was scandal inside of his cabinet, but he has been asked to be accountable for his behavior during the pandemic, amongst other things, right? And that finally was the straw that broke the camel's back. Look at the Italian government now. The prime minister there has resigned and been voted out by a vote of confidence for much the same reason, right? Inability to control the economy.
Well, let's go through this because this just happened. So I don't think
Okay.
people really know about this. Do you want to take this? So this just happened a short time ago. Let's put this up on the screen on my laptop here, Philip. This is Italy's so we had overnight this was the case, but now about 45 minutes ago we got confirmation that this has now happened. You want to
Right. So Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi had tendered his resignation last week, and the president decided not to accept it. So he was held to this vote of confidence where he was indeed able to resign or forced to resign. So what happened, right? Clearly, this was a natural disaster in the works. Now, most of us, when the pandemic,
a natural disaster?
no, it's not a natural. It's a man-made disaster. Clearly.
Right. No, because you said it was a natural disaster. I said like...
Oh, it was a disaster.
Well, I was going to say, if you think about it, it's not like Mount Vesuvius exploding, right? It's not
Right.
like, okay, hey, Mount Vesuvius just exploded like in Pompeii and like destroyed and killed people, right? No, that didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
It's not like that happened. Clearly, you would think, oh, this must be a natural disaster, right? Something out of our control, a tsunami. Mount Vesuvius explodes. That's why Italy's going... No, it's all man-made. You know, it was within the government's control, a man-made disaster, and look what happened.
Right. Well, Italy has been struggling with a dwindling population and a high level of debt inside of its government. And of course, we all know they had some of the earliest and most draconian lockdowns during COVID that lasted the longest, right? So any kind of progress that the economy could have grown in the last 2 years just simply was not.
Right.
And then now, I feel like there's this sentiment of many different ingredients to the pot.
Okay, so here are the Italian protests. So look at this. Talk about the ingredients. This is one of them. Protests erupting over rising fuel costs. These are taxi drivers that you're looking at here. They're pissed that the government has been going up against the transport sector, and the transport sector is basically trying to outsource this to other countries. Italians don't want other countries running their taxi service. Okay,
Yes.
well, like keep it in the United States. Keep it in Italy. Right, so they're setting off fireworks, set off firecrackers. In fact, they went to, and a bunch of them actually, then handcuffed themselves and bolted themselves to government buildings, government offices, and saying, "Here, look." They handcuffed themselves, chained themselves to the fences there. Italians don't want other countries, running their show. They also inflation, instability, draconian lockdowns. They have massive gas shortages right now. They can't get diesel. They can't get access to petrol. And if you think about it in 2008, right? So Italy in 2008 kind of dodged a bullet, right? While everyone else collapsed. It was bad, right? It was bad. 17% then in 2016 of all their loans were declared junk loans in 2016. Those junk loans were worth $400 billion, for 400 billion euros. They had to be bailed out by the EU. Again, governments printing money because the banks screw over the people. So they artificially print money and then basically hand it out. And no wonder they're collapsing. So now if you look at their debt, it's abysmal.
But if you look at what happened by the European Central Bank today, is that they made a move that was just like what the Federal Reserve has been doing, and they raised interest rates, right? And so that is going to affect all 27 nation states so differently. Where an economy like Italy is teetering on the brink and other economies throughout Europe are not hurting quite so bad. So is this just too little too late for a country like Italy, Greece, Spain, any of these other countries that are really hurting economically? Or will this actually make any difference?
Well, that's a good question. So the ECB, yes, the European Central Bank today announcing this rate increase. But I think the story that's being missed, a lot of it too, is the fact that in the United States and in Europe is that they're also unloading all these bonds, these government bonds that they had bought. Right, they bought up all of this crap. So think about this for a second. Just wrap your heads around this. Okay, this is not an economics show at all, but I want you to think about this. So the government has these artificially low interest rates. Okay, they lend money to banks incredibly cheaply, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then, in order to build up to bail out the countries because they're printing money, they buy up their government bonds, right? So that like pieces of their government, they buy. The central banks buy them up, right? Artificially, and they buying it with fake money. How does that cycle work? Imagine if you lived your life like that.
Well, we're seeing how this cycle works. It really doesn't. Right?
So I guess, you're right, because if you go to the grocery store now, you're using fake money to buy goods. And now your fake money, you need a lot more fake money to buy those goods.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So that's exactly what's happening. Look at Italy's debt right now. $3 trillion in national debt. This and all the way up through, look at this, national debt from 2017 all the way up to 2027 is what it's projected to hit. Unbelievable.
Now, a lot of people said, well, look at what Europe is doing. When the United States was fighting over COVID release packages, the ECB had what felt like to us Americans, plenty of money out there. But now we see the European Central Bank saying, we're going to buy back some of those bonds that were even pandemic related, right?
Right.
And so this is a serious duplication of what's happening throughout Western governments that are built on these sort of fake cycles of money, artificially low interest rates, right? It's happening all over the world. And so to see another major politician be punished for this, I think is really big and interesting.
Well, it's really big and interesting, and it's also going to, it's a huge drag on what this country is going to be able to do right now. So it almost puts the country in a stalemate now until elections are called for the fall. So now the people that were hurting are going to continue to hurt.
Yes.
So the Italian people are going to continue to hurt. And the $200 per month aid that they got was not enough. Mario Draghi said it was not enough. He didn't have support in the government to get more on this aid package. Right? So now the government dissolves. He doesn't have the support. It's dissolved. They'll call for a new election. They'll call for a new government. Again, this is the collapse. You're watching this in real time. We're going to give you more fake money to live on because you can't buy gas. And again, it all comes back to it's all man-made. Why are they paying more for gas? Why are they paying more for all of this stuff?
Why agree to this at all when, I mean, look at the example we have from Serbia right now, right? Which says, we're not going to get involved in this conflict. Our economy is fragile as it is. We're just going to do what's right for the Serbian people. We're going to buy the goods we need to from wherever we need to get them, right? And I heard from somebody on Twitter today, actually, that said here, someone who is in Italy, who said, we don't agree with hitching our wagon to Biden's war, and then we're harmed for it, right? We're hurting here, and we feel like we just don't need this right now. They don't have the bandwidth to take on something like this. So when their politicians fall in line with what other politicians are doing throughout Europe, say, okay, there's a war, we'll do that. We'll slap some sanctions. Got it, right? And then everybody's hurting. It doesn't make sense to normal people.
Now, to be fair, Italy has been experiencing massive droughts in the northern part of the country, 70% of the crops destroyed. But under normal circumstances, you would think that this could be manageable if you're a country that takes care of itself, right? It gets hot in the summers. There's droughts. It's a very dry country. If you've been to Italy, it's dry, right? And so they have droughts, and you should be able to manage that. But if you tell your farmers that you have to give up the fertilizer and you can't produce the crops, and then also on top of that, you can't get water and you can't get fuel because of an artificially man-made disaster by putting sanctions on Russia and also creating a climate crisis or declaring a national emergency climate crisis across these different countries, that's when you have these problems. So it's not just in Italy. We should also talk about Argentina. So Argentina is in the second country that we want to talk about that's on the verge of collapse or has collapsed. Again, you might ask yourself, okay, did one of Argentina's 36 volcanoes suddenly explode overnight? And that's what sent Argentina into collapse. The answer is no. Again, not a natural disaster, not a tsunami, not a hurricane, not a volcano going off. Again, the answer is no. The country's collapse is man-made. So what happened here?
Well, inflation is over 60%. There has been skyrocketing energy costs. And now farmers say that a diesel shortage is crushing their livelihood. So we see sort of a duplicate of what we've seen in, Canada, right? The Netherlands, where farmers are taking to the street and saying, look, you are creating a playing field that we cannot play on. We need these supplies in order to be able to produce our food and our livestock and support this country. These same farmers, again, taking a page out of the Canadian Truckers Handbook and leading massive protests.
Yeah, so look at this. This is the Argentinian farmers and saying, hey, we've had enough. Like, because it goes back to what you're seeing on your screen here. It goes back to 2019. This is what Biden tried to pull yesterday, declaring a climate emergency, right? Mm-hmm. He stopped short of just doing that because this is what it would have looked like. I mean,
Yeah.
you would have literally seen an absolute revolt in the United States. And if you don't already see it now, but you would have, this would have been, it would set people over the edge. You've got a 30% approval rating and you're going to declare a climate emergency. So what is a climate emergency, right? You take away people's livelihoods. You crush their livelihoods. You take away their ability to produce food. You take away their ability to use fertilizer.
And you give yourself the ability to produce what it is you feel is more important than whatever it is you're taking away.
Right. So, okay, here in Argentina, you're not allowed to produce soybeans because you know what? From now on, we're going to get those soybeans from America. So all you soybean farmers, screw you. We've now decided, because we're globalists, this is part of the World Economic Forum, that Argentina will be designated as a place where we just get wine or, whatever. Pick your crop. Beef. Pick your crop, right? This is what we're going to produce here in Argentina because the World Economic Forum decided that. So all you soybean farmers, you're screwed now. You don't get to do what have been producing for 200 years on this land. because Klaus Schwab and globalists got together in Geneva and decided that this is what you're going to do from now on. Government took away their fertilizers. They can't grow food. So these save farmers, you know, again, taking the page out of the Canadian Truckers Handbook, man, those guys really like lit a fire. I mean,
they really should, you know, put together a handbook, like how to stand up against the government and get international media coverage for something that is grassroots.
But in the end, of course, did it really work for Canada? I mean, they had their, you know, the bank accounts stolen. What else, Philip? They had their bank accounts stolen. They had their
privacy tracked.
Yeah, the big one to me was that they were actually actively going after their bank accounts.
Like, bank accounts frozen.
That was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the end, did it actually pay, you know, do well by them? I guess they didn't have to go get the jab for their
Well,
money.
that's the question now, right? So does Sri Lanka get a better government now that they've rose up and said what they don't want, right? Does Italy get a better government? Does England get a better government? Does Argentina get, like, is there an end result to this? That surely politicians around the world are saying, oh, you know, these actions have consequences, and disenfranchised people are letting us know, and it's costing our jobs. But to what end? You know, this is my big question during COVID. Like, will we come out of this better? And I'm not sure if that's happened yet.
Well, look at countries where we you know, I anybody who's watching us from Iceland right now, is anyone watching us from Iceland? Let us know in the chat. We're live right now. We are live. I would love to know. Is anyone listening from Reykjavik? Is anyone other parts of Iceland? Because here's a country that, you know, after the 2008 collapse, put people in prison for what the corruption, right, and how they destroyed that country, right, and you know, created a new government as a result of it, right, so that something like that would never happen again. So again, we have these little glimmers of hope here and there occasionally, but I often feel like we end up going right back into the same corrupt politicians, you know, again. So right now, Democrats are scrambling to figure out who they're going to put up against Donald Trump in 2024 in the United States, because surely it's not going to be Biden, and certainly won't be Kamala Harris. Who will it be? What corrupt politician are they going to choose from? They're going to choose, you know, Gavin Newsom? Like, this is all we choose from? This is all we pick from? And then the cycle repeats itself over and over and over again, unless we rise up and demand that these people are thrown out of office and we clean house. I mean, Donald Trump was supposed to go to Washington and clean and drain the swamp. He didn't.
I often think that, especially the United States, it's just too big to have a representative government represent this big of a landmass, right? But these smaller countries don't prove my point if they can't get it right for even a smaller population, right?
Yeah.
So the only pattern that I see here is that these governments are run by humans.
That's right.
And they all are starting wars that are costing their citizens.
I'm trying to see if anyone here is, Jay Thomas says French Revolution. Yeah, see Sodom and Gomorrah on full display. The swamp is too big, Carol says in our chat.
Yeah, agree. Agree.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. This didn't happen during tribal living, did it? I don't know. I wasn't around.
Roberta says, yeah, they took their trucks, their livelihoods, their GoFundMe pages, and their donations. In Canada. Yeah, they went after that. Like, you know, you do not live here. Sandy says, you do not live here. You should not be given a vote. I don't know where here is. This is a global show. So
do you want to see my tax bill?
Because you're talking about the United States?
Yeah, if you're saying I don't live there, so then I don't get a vote, but then you know what? I still have to pay taxes no matter what. So yes, I do get a vote.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to make that exchange, then we need to change the Constitution or change the tax laws.
I would love that. Yeah, don't tax me.
Then I'll stop voting and I'll stop paying taxes. Fine by me, right? But look up the only 2 countries in the world that tax citizens, whether they live there or not. And the United States is one of them. The other country that does that is Eritrea at a flat 2%. So you can kiss my ass for saying that.
Yeah, I mean, that really chaps my ass. You don't, like, really? So you can't have an opinion about what the hell happens? You can only do that in your own home. You can only give a shit what happens in your own home. That's it. You can't care about what happens in Argentina. You can't comment. You can't talk about Italy. You can't talk about the United States. You must live in each of these countries to talk about them. Okay, got it.
Right, we're trying to place together the pieces, right, so that we can all understand why we are living this way. We're not telling you what is the best way to live. Clearly, we don't understand everything because we are all flawed humans. So, but if you want to say anything like that to me again, then kiss my ass.
That's right. Yes. So, hey, we're going to talk about a lot more stuff. We're going to talk about President Putin. You know what? He doesn't live in the United States. Is he allowed to talk about the United States?
He takes that liberty.
As far as I know, he doesn't. So we'll talk about that. President Putin slamming the West. We're going to dissect that piece of this, and you can talk about, how much of the U.S. tax dollar goes to the military-industrial complex when almost every penny that I make literally goes to the military defense contract so they can go and kill other human beings. Like that, I absolutely will speak out about that. That's what this show is all about. So again, you want to take my tax dollars that I work hard for, and it's going to go so I can send weapons to Ukraine? Yeah. No.
Yeah, then we get a vote.
We get a vote. I'll vote. I'll vote those sons of bitches out.
Yeah, absolutely. We get a vote.
So we're going to talk about that. We'll also talk about Wuhan. We're going to talk about what's going on with monkeypox, because the New York Post has an unbelievable story about trying to go, if you have monkeypox right now, how many of you watching right now have monkeypox or know someone that does? If you try to go get care for it, you might be in for a rude awakening. We're also going to talk about Bill Gates buying up farmland all over the world, and why he's doing that and what that might lead to. All of that and more as this show continues. But first, I want to tell you about, if you've got a retirement account right now, you've got an IRA, you've got a 401k or a savings account, things are scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record $30 trillion. And inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time before the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. Talk to my friends over at Goldco and see how they can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. All you need to do is go to that website on the screen, which is redactedlikesgold.com. Redactedlikesgold.com, and boy, do we. We like precious metals that aren't tied to corrupt governments. Corrupt governments that destroy the currency, like we're seeing in Europe, like we're seeing in the United States, with these government currencies that are going in the toilet. Argentina, Venezuela, the list is endless. But if you've got precious metals, you've got real estate, you've got actual items that can protect you, you'll be protected. Go to redactedlikesgold.com. You can get $10,000 or more in free silver when you open a qualifying account. Redactedlikesgold.com. Get $10,000 in free silver when you open a qualifying account with Goldco. So our thanks to them for supporting the show. All right. Well, on this show, we cover what world leaders have to say because we think it's important. When President Biden speaks, we cover it. When Vladimir Zelensky speaks, we cover it. When Xi Jinping says something, we cover it. When the president of Serbia, Vučić, speaks, we cover it because when world leaders speak, it has huge implications, right? So Vladimir Putin, speaking yesterday at a conference, took time out to basically slam the West, but not specifically just the West, like Western countries, the United States, Europe, etc. But he was specifically talking about globalists. These World Economic Forum globalists who make these sort of wild moves on climate, and he really slammed the West on going into other countries, poor countries. And he talked about Africa, going into these countries and the United States going in and basically exploiting their resources, going into these other countries and taking their lithium, their gold, their precious metals, their oil, like the United States is currently doing in Syria. So I want to play this sound. We translated it for you, so we put subtitles up on the screen for you. I want you to watch it. It's about a minute long, and then we'll have a discussion about it on the back side of this. Watch.
Не может предложить миру свою модель будущего. Да, конечно, этот золотой миллиард не случайно стал золотым. Добился очень многого. Но не только занял свои такие позиции благодаря каким-то реализованным идеям. В значительной степени он занял свои позиции за счет грабежа других народов. И в Азии, и в Африке. Ну как же, так и было. Индию он сколько грабили. И сегодня элиты этого золотого миллиарда панически боятся, что другие центры мирового развития могут представить свои варианты развития. Но как бы западные и так называемые наднациональные элиты не стремились сохранить существующий порядок вещей наступает все-таки новая эпоха, новый этап в мировой истории. И только подлинно суверенные государства могут обеспечить высокую динамику роста, стать примером для других в стандартах и качестве жизни людей, в защите традиционных ценностей и высоких гуманистических идеалов, моделей развития, в которых человек становится не средством, а высшей целью.
Interesting, right? We play it to discuss your thoughts on this. I mean, slamming this new world order. This is exactly what we've been hearing from the White House. We heard from Brian Deese a few weeks ago calling it this is all part of the transition. This is all part of the liberal world order. Declare climate emergencies, use the cover of the pandemic to run businesses out, right? To consolidate power. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about Bill Gates buying up all of this land. Taking away power. We see this with the World Health Organization. World Health Organization taking away power in the United States from the United States, pushing it to these unelected globalist leaders who then are going to tell you what to do. We're going to consolidate a currency, not use the euro, not use the United States dollar, not use any of that. We're going to put it under one roof. And by the way, we're going to use military might. We're going to go into countries in Africa. We're going to go into Latin America. If you watch, unbelievable interviews with some military leaders over the past few days out of SOCOM, out of the Southern Strategic Command, talking about like going into like Latin America and the Caribbean and talking about like, man, you guys have so many precious metals down here, the lithium that you guys have, all of the stuff. And we are here to protect you. We're here to protect you. And it's United States interest for us to protect you and all of your resources and all of the minerals, because we don't want these minerals getting into the hands of nefarious people. So the United States, we are here to protect your minerals and your oil.
Well, I don't know about all of that, but I have been reading Douglas Murray's book, The War on the West. And he talks about how this is what's going through my head as I see this, because this is something that he absolutely predicted, is that because neoliberals have us so primed, right, to say that everyone in the West is greedy, there's a 1% rule, the West likes to dominate the rest of the world, everyone in the West is a racist, everyone in the West who's cisgendered is privileged, right, and that our entire fortune is based on slavery and, more atrocities than any other people, that there's this self-loathing going on in the West that our enemies can exploit. And so someone like Vladimir Putin or any other Eastern or, non-aligned leader can say, look what the West has done. They've done all of these things. And most of us in the West who want to be sort of open to thought, who've been sort of, agreeing with this. Yeah, we have racism in our society. Yeah, we're built on slavery. Okay, you're right. Are sort of quick to jump on this war of the West and sort of ignore any good that may be a part of Western culture, and that we should reject that and sort of decide what it is we want, not just agree that, we're Westerners, so we must be bad.
Well, I can tell you what we want, which is stop colonizing other countries, stop plundering other countries for their minerals and resources, right? Here's the United States sitting on massive amounts of natural resources. One of the great bread baskets of the world, one of the great mineral bread baskets of the world, right? So instead you cancel leases so that companies can't access but we'll go to your country, we'll steal your oil in Syria. So here's one thing we can stop doing is telling other people how to live and also then imposing ourselves on other people. Right? The UK is going to just tell people how to live and it's going to go, that's
right.
That's
but
what they do best, right?
Isn't this part of Putin's point right here is that we don't want to live like they do, right? I don't know if they're saying everyone should live like we do, but they want to live the way that he says, which seems to be, in some ways a bit intolerant about, certain sexualities or what have you, right? I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I don't want to just sort of jump on this like, oh, he's right, the West always does bad things narrative either.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I think it's also divisive to just say the good, bad, and that's why
Yes.
one of
Yeah.
my favorite publications, and Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate, who write over at the Gray Zone. The name of their publication is called the Gray Zone for a reason. You have white, you have black, and then what happens in the gray zone is really where all of this stuff to me is the most important stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not always pretty. It's not always cut and dry. And that's where, you got to get your hands dirty a little bit for things to have real change.
Well, we don't have to agree with them, right? But it's important that we understand what the narrative is around Putin and other Russians who do agree with the war, and why they would feel this way, because they don't want Western creep of Western culture. That's fine, right? But just sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, all things Western are racist and classist and,
No, but I think what
all
he's
of that
saying
stuff.
in that speech, when he's specifically talking about like these globalists are deciding for people around the world how to live their lives, and we don't want that. Like these globalists are declaring a climate emergency, which then forces farmers to lose their land, to lose their livelihood. To you can't use fertilizer anymore. You can't do any of that. So by these unelected globalists, so he's specifically talking about globalists and the New World Order.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with it.
I don't want that either. Sure. Right.
Yeah.
But I am, trying to parse out the nuance of what Vladimir Putin wants. And, I wouldn't want it in the reverse. Right.
No, but think about it, the millions of Americans that voted for this, right? That voted for, hey, yes, we've got to, we're liberal elites we live outside of New York City. We're liberal elites in Massachusetts, et cetera. And we've got our wealthy property. We drive our Teslas. We drive our electric cars, and we're going to tell other people how to live. So we're going to take away farms because eating meat is bad. We're going to, we want to make sure that you can't do that anymore. That's leading to climate change. So yeah, we're going to get on board with all of these things that these guys come up with at the World Economic Forum, and we vote them in, right? And so these people, I didn't vote for them. I certainly didn't vote for them, but you've got people that voted for these people. Millions of people voted for Hillary Clinton. Millions of people voted for this.
Yeah.
Millions of people voted for Biden. Millions of people voted for the Squad and all of these people that promised this this green change and all of this stuff, and it's been a total disaster.
Yes.
And now people are going to have to vote them out. I mean, that's what's going to have to happen here. Laura Reeves says, "I'm Italian. I lived in the UK for 20 years, Mexico for 5 years, Netherlands for the past 6. Politicians are gross everywhere." Yeah, like where are politicians like squeaky clean? Honestly, back in the day, think about politicians back in the day that didn't make a career out of it. In the early part of the in the 17 and 1800s in the United States, you had farmers, you had people who worked the land, and they would come to Washington for a short amount of time, and they would go back.
Yeah.
And they weren't career politicians. And now you see people like Nancy Pelosi and Richard Shelby who have battleships being built in his backyard in Alabama so that he can make money off of it, so that he can, these pet projects that are in their backyard because they're career politicians.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, this is the disaster. But we've got a lot more news we're going to cover here on the show. We're going to cover what's going on with monkeypox and the latest of the Wuhan lab. We're also going to look at Bill Gates and this farmland and some startling revelations about him buying up all of this farmland, and Congress is actually now calling him to task over this, so we'll get into that. But first, you want to tell us about our friends over at Upside?
Sure. From crying at the pump to getting an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts, and of course, it really hurts. This is something we're talking about all the time. But then there is Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With every purchase, you can earn cash back with Upside. So to get started, you download a free app, you use our promo code that's Redacted, and you get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, you can claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You can check in at the business and pay as usual with a credit card or debit card, and then you get paid. So you know how you go around with your little frequent buyer cards, like, oh, I have a membership here, I have points here, right? I have a free sub here. This is like collecting all of those perks for all of your purchase, not just your Chipotle card, not just your Target card, right? In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, this is Upside is all of those things in one place, and you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have a 4.8-star review on the App Store. Now, download the free Upside app. Use our promo code Redacted, and you will get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code Redacted. Again, that's Upside in the App Store.
All right, let's talk about monkeypox, shall we? We've all been waiting, of course. We have kind of a news roundup now on the next pandemic. You know, you've been hearing people talk about what's going to be the next plandemic. I don't know about that, right? I'm not going to speak on that specifically. But
we're not planning anything.
I'm not planning anything, but you know that there's obviously discussions about perhaps even a new round of stimulus talk in a reconciliation bill as we head into August, because we could see a resurgence of COVID. That could be the one thing, of course, that Democrats hang their hat on going into the midterm elections. Like, hey, Democrats got me a stimulus check, so I'm going to vote for them again. You know, that's one thing that they could possibly do. Or monkeypox specifically. Could it be COVID? Could it be monkeypox? Spin the wheel. You decide. So we've got a couple of infectious disease stories to talk about. First, President Biden this afternoon tested positive for COVID. So we want to cover that. He's been vaccinated twice.
Yes.
Triple
and boosted twice.
I think, yeah, maybe he's got the vaccine 3 times and he was boosted twice. Now, you remember last year, literally almost to the exact day, President Biden specifically last year said that President Biden last year said, if you get the jab, no problem, you will not get COVID. That's what he said. Well, that didn't happen, of course. So the White House says it's not important, though, where he was infected. So they were asked specifically at the White House today about this, like why Jean-Pierre was asked specifically, hey, where was President Biden infected? Like, we would want to know this, right? We'd want to know this if President Trump was infected. So where was he infected? Here's what Jean-Pierre had to say.
Where exactly was the president infected?
Where was he infected? I don't think we know. I certainly don't know if you have any thoughts on it.
Look, I don't think that matters, right? I think what matters is we prepared for this moment. I think what matters is what Dr. Jha just laid out. If we look at where we were a year and a half ago, this is a president, when he walked in, one of his first priorities was to make sure we had a comprehensive plan to get people vaccinated.
What?
Well,
what? So it's not important where he was again, if this was a Republican, by the way, there would have been news report after news report about what party he went to.
Yes.
Where he was over the past 14 days.
How he wore no mask.
How he wore no mask. He was at this event, right? I mean, I love the double standard in the press, right?
And some Republican outlets are reporting that it gets too close and personal to other people.
Right.
Right. So that would matter if he didn't have the golden touch with the media.
Like, where was he over the past few days? He was at that event yesterday on climate. Like, who was he with?
Who else spoke into that microphone, right? So, I mean, it speaks to the fact that we're not so hot on contact tracing anymore. We're not so worried about it. It's everywhere, right? But it also speaks to the fact that it still matters. I mean, even asking this question, right? It still matters how much your viral load is. If he got it from someone who he was in a car with, right, then his viral load may be a lot higher than, say, had he been exposed through the microphone that he was, whatever. These are stupid examples, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, and also you think about just the ridiculousness, right? I think we've now jumped the shark on this, right? But the idea that he's, triple vaxxed, double boosted, right? Wears a mask nonstop.
Triple vaxxed.
Double vaxxed, triple vaxxed. I think he's had I don't know how many.
No, I think it's 2 and 2.
Does anyone know in the chat how many?
The
2
and 2 primary ones plus 2 boosters.
Yeah. Whose hair has he sniffed, as someone said in the chat?
That's sort of what I was getting at and trying to be kind about it.
He is a viral load, Apollo 33 says. So where else, right? So he's got all of these things, right? He's got all of these different jabs, and then he wears a mask all the time, right? The point is that just like these other flu, you're going to get it, right? You're going to get it at some point, right? So again, then the focus, of course, on even as Dr. Fauci said last week, the waning efficacy of this stuff. Okay, so now you're going to push again for it? Then why is your CDC continuing to push for it again and again and again?
Yes.
That's a real question.
But, Democrats did really well on the COVID news cycle. And so I'm not saying the president doesn't have COVID, of course, but, bringing COVID to the top of the conversation rather than the fact that jobs numbers are the lowest in 8 months. Now, right? Because Democrats continue to battle this high inflation number with the fact that, well, the jobs numbers are good, right? So if both things are not true, then they're going to have to look these inflation numbers right in the beast, in the eyes of the beast.
So we did learn, you can take my laptop, Philip, what he's taking Paxlovid, which is the COVID medication prescribed to Biden. That's what he's to deal with this, for especially for high-risk people. We did learn earlier this afternoon that he's been taken off of heart medicine, the heart medicine that he was on, so as not to conflict with it. He's been taking Paxlovid, consistent with CDC guidelines. He will isolate at the White House and continue to carry out all of his duties during that time. The antiviral drug is intended for use by patients who are considered likely to become seriously ill from the deadly virus, such as elders and people with pre-existing conditions like heart disease. So they, again, proved this thing in December of last year. They were authorized to administer the drug only just 2 weeks ago. So this is new. Until early July, the drug could only be prescribed by physicians. So the other question is, so you have staff members, according to reports this afternoon, have been going in to take pictures of him just to prove that he's okay. They're releasing a video of this. So they're sending staff members in just to take photos of him to prove to the press that he's alive. I mean, it's kind of crazy. We also had the same level of weirdness around Trump, right? We had the helicopter ride to the hospital, right, and got the drug cocktail that he got there, came back, then released that video, seen him going up on the White
then
House
went on a
balcony,
joyride with his Secret Service so that people could see him.
waving and all of that. Yeah, that I'm fine, that I'm good to go, and all of this. But a lot of questions this afternoon about, as a concerns for a 79-year-old. This is what people are saying. He is 79 years old, and you're taking him off of heart medication to give him this, barely approved 2 weeks ago,
antiviral,
which had a lot of problems according to reports, right? And he's receiving this Paxlovid to minimize the severity of it, but they're not going to say anything more than that. This is a subvariant. Doctors saying it's highly contagious, more easily evade the protections provided by coronavirus vaccination. So really doesn't matter at all at this point. How many of these things have you been jabbed with? Because these things have mutated so much that they're not even associated anymore.
Yeah. So we planned for this talking point was just, it's very perplexing, right? Because, I plan to take care of people with COVID in my house too, with chicken soup.
We planned for this, yeah. So I won't answer your question.
With some chicken soup and some Epsom salt baths. That's how I plan for it.
I plan for this. I want to, Philip, I'm taking the mouse over here. Where is the mouse cursor? There it is. There it is. I want to play this again. So this is, we planned for it.
Where exactly was the president infected?
Where was he infected? I don't think we know. I certainly don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Look, I don't think that matters, right? I think what matters is we prepared.
By the way, you're going to tell us what matters? I'm a reporter asking the question, and then a separate reporter asks the follow-up question. Well, I know you said it doesn't matter, but it matters to us as journalists. We're asking that question.
Well, because when President Trump had COVID, everyone was concerned, how long did he know and who else was he around, right? So if they couldn't contact trace and say, well, he was around so-and-so, who had COVID, we know that he tested negative as recently as Tuesday. Okay, who was he around? I think that's a valid question.
Meanwhile, the New York Post has a stunning story out today about monkeypox in the United States, and it seems that the CDC doesn't know what the hell to do about it. They're so focused on other stuff, they're not even really focused on monkeypox, but you should maybe talk to CNN and other members of the mainstream media because they're really focused on monkeypox. So here's the New York Post piece from today. What monkeypox? Woman with insane rash turned away for testing. So according to the New York Post, they had pulled this piece from TikTok. A woman went viral for describing the lengths that she went to, included calling the Centers for Disease Control on the phone and prevention to figure out whether or not she has monkeypox. So she goes to her primary care physician and, they said, no, you got to call the CDC if you think you have monkeypox. We don't even know what that is. What are you talking about? So she calls the CDC and then they're like, no, you got to go back to your primary care physician. They're like, you just have MRSA. That's all you have. Just go home. Just go back home. You have a bacteria infection. Just go home. You're fine. Nothing to see here. So listen to her explain.
MRSA is staph. So
Staph
that
infection.
is serious, but okay.
She was told that's what she had. So she should just go home. And get an antibiotic and go home.
So then she calls back and actually gives them the idea. Do you think this could be monkeypox? Like it's her that became concerned about it. Go ahead and play
go ahead and play it.
So in my mind, I know that it's not just a rash. I can tell that something's wrong. So I call urgent care and I'm just like, hey, is there any way you can test that for monkeypox? They said, monkeypox? I said, yeah, that disease that's going around? They said, yeah, we don't do that. The CDC has no idea what they're doing. Nobody's educated, not even doctors. And doctors will refuse to see you, treat you, and or test you.
Great news.
So they told her to go to a dermatologist, and then a dermatologist called her back and say, we're going to cancel your appointment because we're not going to deal with that. If you think it's monkeypox, no, don't even come in here. We don't know what to do with it. And so no. And then she called not just urgent care, not just the CDC, but also a dermatologist and her primary care. And she was like, none of them really had a plan. So yeah, that's upsetting, especially when you consider there are now reports of about 1,400 cases inside the United States. 96% of them are males. And they don't know where to stop them too. Like this is the other big piece of this. Like they don't know what to do about it. They're like, okay, we don't know what to do about it. Maybe you don't know what to do about it because apparently, and according to reports, this might not have actually just been naturally occurring in nature. It might have been manipulated once again. So now there are reports that this has in fact come or was being worked on and studied at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Sound familiar? The Wuhan Institute of Virology is, of course, the same place where COVID started, right? And we have multiple reports about that having been escaped from that lab. And we know, we've covered this on the show, reports of those individuals working at the lab that got sick in the days before the pandemic broke out. We certainly have the Canadian military that was there for the military games, witnessing all sorts of crazy lockdowns happening there. So the evidence is overwhelming on Wuhan lab, right? Well, now the Wuhan lab manipulating and studying, working on the monkeypox virus specifically. Here's Dr. John Campbell explaining the data on this. Watch.
Now, the main thing we're looking at today is it turns out that the National Institutes of Health in the United States and the Wuhan Institute of Virology have both been working on monkeypox, coincidentally, before the outbreak that we are currently experiencing. And I kid you not, this is from the Institute of Virology in Wuhan. This is where this research on monkeypox is being carried out. So the Wuhan Institute of Virology is working on a test to test for the presence of monkeypox. And I think we could assume they're interested in tests for smallpox as well. Bearing in mind this is a potential biological warfare agent.
Wait, I'm just going to pause it there. Bearing in mind that this is a potential warfare agent, a biological warfare agent. Just bear that in mind as we continue.
If you're already starting to feel uncomfortable, join the club. I'm actually very uncomfortable about what I'm about to tell you. So that's the name of the paper there. Efficiency of a large-scale fragment of monkeypox virus. So basically what they're doing is they make a section of monkeypox virus. And they want to use that as a quantitative polymerase chain reaction template. And they're going to use this way to put it together into a yeast. Now, direct quote from this paper. Since monkeypox infection has never been associated with an outbreak in China, the viral genome material required for PCR detection is unavailable. So the Chinese authorities, it would appear, are incapable of getting hold of monkeypox virus. So they have to basically make their own using synthetic techniques, or make a part of the viral genome themselves using synthetic techniques.
Okay.
Sound familiar?
So they made themselves up a synthetic pot to work with. He later goes on in this video to say, I don't buy that. You could have taken a scrape off of anybody. There are hundreds of cases in the West and thousands in Africa, and had it shipped, although, again, shipping viruses around, I'm not sure how comfortable we all with that, but this does happen, right?
Right.
And so that doesn't seem like a very good excuse for them to have like brewed up a pot.
a pot of monkeypox that they're making. I mean, how many people feel okay with that? And by the way, again, the reason that we have this bizarre behavior, of course, with COVID is because it was man-made.
Yes.
Right? When you manipulate it, when you
Yes.
manipulate it the way that you do, and and the gain of function research that was done, right? The reason that it's had all these major problems, we've had this mutation of it in such a way, is because it was made in a lab.
Yes.
It was not naturally occurring. It was made and manipulated in a lab.
So, if you read the paper that he cites here, it cites several labs in China, including the Wuhan lab, and they sort of assigned this to themselves, right? And they started way back in February. So, yeah, it's not confidence boosting at all.
And never mind the fact someone points out in the chat here, Gabriel says 40 biolabs in Ukraine. By the way, where we know they were doing this type of research, they were doing gain of function research in Ukraine. So all of this stuff comes together, and it all comes together in interesting ways. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're here every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time for our live show. So please subscribe to the channel, covering the stories you're not going to see in the mainstream media, stories that get redacted. That's the name of our show. So there's another story we want to talk about. Speaking of labs and vaccines and billionaires and globalists, let's talk about Bill Gates, shall we?
All right. I'm not comfortable with the way that you put all those things together.
They're all together, aren't they?
I just don't, I'm sensitive to being accused of like, oh, you're one of those, but we're not.
But haven't you learned when we talk about conspiracy theories, as we say, Philip, right? A conspiracy theory is just a spoiler alert for what's to come 6 months from now. Like all of the stuff that people were called conspiracy theorists about a year ago, 2 years ago, has come to pass.
Yes.
Right? Has happened, has been exposed. So, I'm proud to be a conspiracy theorist because that means that we're onto something.
Yes.
So, all right, go ahead. So Bill Gates is in a little bit of hot water.
Well, South Dakota Republican Representative Dusty Johnson is calling for Bill Gates to testify before the House Agricultural Committee about why exactly he is buying up so much farmland in the United States. You can read this tweet. He says, Bill Gates is the largest owner of U.S. farmland. I'm curious what's planned for this incredibly productive ag land, given that he believes developed countries like America, quote, shouldn't eat any red meat. How are his land purchases related to those aspirations? Now, of course, he then went on to tell Fox News that ownership of farmland matters. No one has buying it up more than Bill Gates. He now owns 270,000 acres, making him the largest owner of farmland. So can we pull up the map? I'm sorry, I'm going out of order a little bit, but this is actually a current map of where Bill Gates does own all of this farmland. So I'm not one to think that, testifying in front of congressional committee is going to do very much. We've seen that Congress doesn't have the power to like put people in jail. It can recommend things to justice departments or other criminal investigations, right? But just to get him to answer for this, like, what's your plan? Especially because Bill Gates has continued to say, oh, people should eat less meat, and that would really lower greenhouse gas emissions. So does he have some kind of alternative that he's working for?
Now, he did do an Ask Me Anything on Reddit.
Okay.
I think last year, Philip's our resident Redditor. He spends every day on Reddit. So it was last year. He was asked that question, is this climate related? And he said no. He said no, that his purchases of land, it's not, and he wouldn't talk more about it, but it's not climate related. Okay, so if it's not climate related, then what the hell is it for? Again, the conspiracy theorist in me, again, goes to what's been happening to all of these small independent farmers all over the world that are having their land bought up by people like Bill Gates or governments or China. By the way, I know our friend Tucker points out that if you want to control a country, you take control of their resources, right? You take control of their land. If China is buying all of your land in the United States or in other countries, that's a problem, right? If China owns the land. We see that with utilities in parts of Europe too. China, or certain countries, in order to become financially solvent again, sold off their public utilities, sold off their electric companies, sold off their water companies. Can you imagine living in Spain, having the water that you drink owned by China? It's a reality. It's literally what happened. So this is not fantasy. So China, Bill Gates buying up these resources. You want to control people, you control their food, their water, their land. Here's how Fox News laid it out on how much land Bill Gates actually owns. Listen.
This has caught the attention of billionaire investors like Bill Gates. As of January 2021, Gates was the largest private owner of U.S. farmland. He owns around 269,000 acres across 19 states.
Bigger farmers are continuing to get bigger.
Yeah, they are. And the smaller ones are being absolutely crushed. So I wanted to play this because I thought it was really good. Vandana Shiva, okay, she is Indian. She's an Indian anti-globalist. She's an Indian scholar, brilliant. And she has a theory about all of this buying of farmland and consolidation of power. Listen to Vandana, I hope I'm saying her name right, on using food as a weapon. Listen.
Local communities, which is why hunger grows. If the world has to be fed, it has to be fed by growing food locally, to be used locally as the biggest proportion of the food basket. Some elements will be traded internationally, but what is traded internationally should not be staple foods. What is traded internationally should be that extra flavor of spices from India and coffee from Guatemala. That's all right. But to turn the world into a dependency on staples has nothing to do with feeding the world. It has a lot to do with controlling the food supply. The United States evolved a phrase during the Vietnam War, and the phrase was food as a weapon. The use of food as the ultimate weapon of control. And the tragedy is the growth of agribusiness in the US has gone hand in hand with the US foreign policy to deliberately create hunger locally in order to make the world dependent on food supplies through which you can then control countries and their decision-making ability. So hunger has become an instrument of war. And food responding to that artificially created hunger is an instrument of war. Peace means you grow food locally, you grow
food locally, right? It's something we talk about on the show all the time, right? So you're taking power away from people. You're taking their farms, you're taking their power, you're taking their livelihoods, and then when you take all of that, you control them. I mean, I don't mean to, it's not conspiratorial, it's happening.
It's also just incredibly logical and a lot more of a natural way to live, right? Your staples are grown locally. Well, then there's no carbon footprint on your apple, right? And so then we don't have to fight over imports and exports. And what's the quote you always like to say, Philip, about people take food out of the ground and lock it up, and that this is like a real tool of hegemony? Can you repeat it?
Yeah, that was Daniel Quinn, where he said we take all the food which is freely given, and then we lock it up, and then we work to get some of it back.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that was basically his quote.
It's
sat
really
with
a crazy cycle that we put ourselves in.
I was in Hawley, Pennsylvania, beautiful little Hawley, Pennsylvania, and I was not too far from Woodlock, a beautiful area, if upstate Pennsylvania, if you've ever been. A very red area of the country, I would say. It's a Republican conservative area. I was sitting at Cora's Bistro, if you've ever driven up there, having some hot wings.
Best hot wings.
Best
in
hot wings you'll ever have.
Pennsylvania,
Delicious.
in my opinion.
Yeah, Cora's Bistro. And I was sitting next to a group of Republicans, and we were talking, and they recognized me from my days on Fox News when I was a news anchor, and we were talking about the food supply, and I was talking about how terrible this super Walmart was that was down the street, and they said, don't even get me started. And you would have thought, okay, they're conservative, they're Republican, they would have been in favor of like this big corporation in their backyard. They hated it. They're like, we don't, the meat, they talked about the ground beef, right? At the super Walmart in Hawley, Pennsylvania. If you looked at the package of ground beef at the super Walmart, there was, in this 1 pound of ground beef, 1/3 of it was like from Argentina. 1/3 of it was from China. Another third was from some farm in America somewhere, all shipped somewhere and then put together in one package of ground beef. They said, we will never touch the meat there. We won't, but we get our eggs locally at the farm here. And if we could all return to that way of living, we would be better off.
Yes.
And it talked about being, that's where, and so the local farms, they were really thriving. There's some like local co-ops that were doing really well. Because people are saying enough is enough. I saw someone earlier in our chat saying YouTube prepper channels are being shut down.
Really?
So if someone's still watching who was talking about that in the chat, please drop it in here and let us know. It doesn't surprise me. It really, think how terrifying this is right now.
Oh, but I love homesteading channels. Not necessarily
prepping,
prepper channels.
But it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Homesteading, prepping, making sure that you're protecting your family.
Right.
We see it happening in the Netherlands right now, right? Dutch farmers who are having their livelihood, just like Sri Lanka, just like in Italy, just like in Argentina, being told that you can't, your farms are being taken. You can't produce on your land anymore because you're not meeting nitrogen requirements, right? Which is ridiculous because, anyone who understands Dutch farmers know that like the production of nitrogen is incredibly low compared to the rest of the world. So they really take care of the land. And they're taking away their livelihood. Here's a Dutch farmer. Listen to why he thinks it's part of a much bigger plan. Watch.
And how do you feel about the government and the way it's treated the agricultural sector?
We believe it's part of a bigger plan.
Yeah.
And that's why they need our land. They don't need our nitrogen. They need our land. 85% of land is from the farmers, and they chase us away to get land for building and recreation.
What a sweet man, He's like, they're chasing us away. It's part of a bigger plan. We all as farmers agree here that this is all part of a bigger plan. It's not about the nitrogen. Here's a tweet in favor of the government seizure. I saw this right in line with this. Bodil Neeson says, so that's the farmer's version. What if actually the reason for the government buying farmland is that the emissions of ammonia and nitric oxide and nitro oxides are far too high? Two is spelled improperly there. And that nature needs space, using a little Sherlock Holmes emoji. Okay, then here's the response on that. Dr. McCall writing, because that is a fake excuse. Dutch farmers have the lowest emissions per ton of food produced in the world. Whatever the reason is for trying to put family farmers out of business, it is not to do with the environment.
And there are actually ways to mitigate this ammonia release. For instance, we covered in the newsletter, feeding seaweed to livestock is one way, right? When you talk about runoff of agriculture, growing food, you can not flood the land with pesticides if you move to drip systems. Like there are other things that you can do to make incremental improvement to agriculture. This feels like a Band-Aid on an amputee.
Well, again, this is a problem here because, again, the incremental thing that you talk about, they're not giving them time to do that.
No.
They're literally ripping
or
the
even
Band-Aid.
heads up about it.
Yeah, they're just implementing this, and it's okay for the big farms. They can do it. They can deal with it, right? They can also buy carbon offset credits and do all sorts of other things while these little farmers are being crushed. and then they swoop in and buy up their land. Not even, they just swoop in and take it. They swoop it. You can't do this? Don't worry, we'll take your land for you. We'll take it. Bill Gates will buy it. China will buy it, and we'll consolidate it. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert also asked that question today. She said, when are we going to ask, from Bill Gates, what the hell are you doing with all this land?
Yeah.
If it's not about climate, then what the hell is it about?
I was interested in some of the responses to South Dakota Republican Representative Dusty Johnson. Lauren Boebert, she evokes all kind of emotions on Twitter, so I didn't think there would be a productive conversation around her replies. But for him, a lot of the responses were like, hey, it's a free country. You can buy up land however you want, which is absolutely not true. You cannot buy land and do whatever you want around it. There are government restrictions on how you use your land. And I think that it is somebody's right to ask questions if the majority of the land is, especially agricultural land, is being, I don't have high expectations for the result of this testimony, but I think that we should all listen.
Yeah, here's some tweet responses. I'll put them up on the screen here to your point. Doug Moreno says, it's his land. Free market and all, so none of your business. Okay, really? Well, he's a representative of the people of South Dakota, so maybe it is his business to know what's going. What if we found out that Disney just bought up all of South Dakota and wanted to turn it into a theme park?
What if he's literally breeding people like the Matrix? Is that your business?
What if it's Soylent Green? What if he's making a Soylent? Is that how am I saying it right? Soylent. Soylent Green. It's from people. It's made of people.
Right. So okay. I mean,
so farmers again. Ain says Gates is circumventing a 1932 anti-corporate farm ownership law by pledging to lease the land back to farmers after the purchase is complete. So farmers will own nothing and they will be happy. Okay. So I can be a sharecropper. Bill Gates can be my slave master. So he can own the land and I can lease it back from him. I can work on his plot of land. Pay him, Master Gates. This is literally what, we should all ask these questions. I'm glad he's asking this question. I'd love to have him on the show. I'm going to try to get
Bill Gates.
I'd have a lot of other questions about Bill Gates if he would never do our show, but Representative Dusty Johnson, I'd love to have him on your show. Anyone who is in South Dakota, I'd love to have anybody from the Dusty Johnson office, please reach out. I'd love to do an interview with you, and I'd love to find out exactly what you plan to ask Bill Gates. We welcome that here on the show.
But Bill Gates, he has been known for his ability to see money in something and then sort of aggregate things and package them and sell them. That's sort of the inception of Windows operating system, is that he was a part of a group of hackers that were sharing software, and then he got upset about it, that the software was being this is a great book, this out of a great book called What the Dormouse Said, about the inception of the Silicon Valley, and was like, I don't think we should be sharing each other's code anymore. He decided to shrink wrap software and became a gazillionaire. So I don't know, whatever that guy's up to.
Yeah.
We can't give him too much credit for. But I think what we could give him credit for is knowing where to make money off of things, But, certain politicians we saw after the first round of lockdowns, the Prime Minister of Portugal, Antonio Costa, said Portugal needs to learn from the pandemic to reduce its dependence on foreign exports. That needs to be the lesson that we learn. Start growing more ourselves, start becoming more self-sustainable. This seems to be the case globally, that reducing your dependence on foreign exports will lead to a happier life for citizens. This is just, sort of another bellwether teaching us all of that.
Alan McCoy in our chat says, Natalie is the most beautiful woman on the earth other than my wife. Oh. Well said.
Thank you.
Very well said. We covered a lot of ground today on the show. And if you subscribe, your name will pop up here on the big board. You'll probably notice that if you are a subscriber to the channel, you'll see it pop up here. Just hit that subscribe button. It's very, very easy to do. By the way, we found out that YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube, unsubscribed people, they literally just go through and they decide to unsubscribe you. They're like, no, you don't want to be subscribed to that channel. And they unsubscribe you as if you don't know how to handle your own account.
Cool.
So please, if your subscribe button, I think if it's red, that means you're not subscribed. So just click the subscribe button and you can subscribe. We also have a daily newsletter. at redacted.inc. You should come over and subscribe to that. It's free. It's totally free. Here's what the website looks like, Philip, if you want to take it here. You just come over to redacted.inc. You can sign up for our free newsletter. Again, totally free. It comes to your email inbox first thing in the morning. You can read it over your cup of coffee in about 5 to 10 minutes. You'll be more informed. We try to do it with a little bit of humor to start your day, and then you'll be more informed as you head out the door. And it's also a little bit of a preview of what we might talk about on the show that night as well. So just it's a great place to go. So redacted.inc is the place to subscribe. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you need to whitelist our email because Google is saying that we're dangerous. So be careful, right? Clayton at redacted.inc is the email. You can send me an email and say hello. Now, many of you sent me an email last night. I got hundreds of emails from you. And you said, yes, please sign me up for the newsletter. I can't do it that way. You have to do it yourself. So you sent me an email. That's great. But you still have to go to redacted.inc and actually subscribe because you have to.
You asked them to send you
I know, but I wanted them to send a hello email.
Yes.
And many of you did, and many of you I responded to. I think I wrote like 100 emails this morning and said hello to many of you. I try to do as much as I can before my carpal tunnel syndrome got out of hand. But so again, that's how you subscribe, is just to go to the website to do it. I can't take your name and stick it into an email list and all that stuff. So just so you know, just don't want you to be upset about that. Oh, I should mention, I'd love to have George Galloway on the show. George is a friend of us on Twitter, a fan of the show. I'm a fan of his. I should mention, as we're doing some house cleaning here, Patrick Lancaster. How many people here watching right now know who Patrick Lancaster is? Just give me a yes in the chat or a no. Let me know right now if you know who he is. If you don't, that's okay. He's an excellent journalist. He's been living in eastern Ukraine for I think 9 years or longer. He's been covering what's been happening there. There was a lot of he's literally in the war zone, covering the truth and exposing the truth that's been happening there. And he disappeared a few weeks ago, and people were very concerned about this. As you know, what happens in Ukraine. You know, we're not going to go into it.
It's a dangerous region.
It's a dangerous region,
go
but we
on.
also, so a lot of people, he went kind of quiet because he was being doxxed. People were sharing personal information about his family, trying to come after him as a journalist, doing his job, and actually one of the few people telling the truth about what's happening in Ukraine. Well, we found out today that he's okay. He went offline and went dark for a few weeks with his family. So he's been with his family quietly, sort of recuperating and just taking some time away with his dad and his family. So just wanted to bring that to you because a lot of people reached out to me and emailed me and said, Clayton, do you know what's going on with Patrick? And so I told you I would look into it. So that's the update. That's what we got this afternoon. So he is safe. That is good news. We need more journalists like him covering these wars and these conflicts to bring us the truth. So just thought I would say that before we wrap things up.
All right.
Do we have any super chats we want to get to before we get on?
We have one more sponsor, which is stamps.com.
Oh, yes. Tell us about stamps.
Okay.
Yes, tell us about stamps, and then we'll get to some super chats.
I like to talk about shipping because I am the kind of person who likes to have a well-stocked stationery cabinet. So stamps.
She does?
I do. I love school supplies. I love staples. I love all things related to this kind of thing. So this is right up my alley. Now, when you're running a small business, every second counts. You can't afford to waste a single moment. So why are you still taking the time out of your day to go to the post office when you could be using stamps.com? Stamps.com makes mailing and shipping quick, easy, and cost-effective. It also saves you time, money, and stress. You know, I usually like to keep those like sticker printables where you can print a label and then just slap it right on the box. Well, with stamps.com, you can do just that. So if you have a well-stocked office, like I do, and you love to buy Avery products, like I do, this is not an ad for Avery, this is an ad for stamps.com. Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million businesses because they give you the ability to set up your shipping, print right there, and then just go and drop your stuff off. You can get discounts you can't find anywhere else, like 30% off USPS rates and 86% off UPS. You can streamline your shipping process with Stamps.com's easy-to-use software. All you need is your computer and your printer and maybe some fancy stickers like the ones I have. But if you don't have the stickers, you can just print on paper and tape it That also works, right? You're up and running anywhere. And I swear, when I get those like sticker labels in the mail, I either order them on Amazon or I go to Staples and get them. I'm so excited. And then when I have the ability to print a label and I'm like, ooh, this sticks right on. I don't know why it feels like a superpower, but it does.
These are the things that gets her excited.
Like super excited. Yeah. Or having my own laminator. I feel super hardcore. So stop wasting time and start saving money when you use stamps.com to mail and ship. You can use our promo code Redacted for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale that's also a Boss office supply. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter our code Redacted.
Sideshow Bob in our chat says, can you please say my name so my missus knows that you're live? She doesn't believe me.
Hi, Slideshow Bob.
It's Sideshow, not Slideshow.
Sorry, Sideshow.
Sideshow Bob. We are live. Michael, we are live. Danielle LeBlanc, yes, we are here. Nice to see all of you. Justin Waters, Greg Mann, African Child. Yes, we are live. Grant Rotham. So thank you guys so much. All right, we got some super chats to get to.
We sure do. Okay, here we go. So the first one was Mahalo Stojilovic. I'm sure I botched that, and I'm fine with that. Biden tested positive for coronavirus, question mark. Yep,
Yes,
covered that.
true.
And then lots of new members. Wale Anderson and Michael Kilgore with some super stickers.
Here's one right now. Let me just read
JJ.
this one. I think the plan of Gates needs to be the main issue for conservatives. Yeah, I missed the rest of it, but I'll get it up here on the screen here in a second. Sorry,
Okay.
We'll read it again.
No, that's fine.
Oh, here it is. I see it now. I think the plan of Gates needs to be the main issue for conservatives and Americans in general, but I don't know if there's a plan to fight back. I mean, like that should be one of the main talking points. I agree. I think. Look, again. I think it comes down. James Carville said it best when Bill Clinton was running against George H.W. Bush in 1991. It was in the war room at Clinton headquarters for the campaign. James Carville, George Stephanopoulos, in that room had a sticker, a sign in that war room that said, "It's the economy, stupid." That's it. It's the economy. People care about their families. They care about their wallet. They care about how they're going to provide for their family and their food, right? Just focus on that. And if you can actually make that better for people, you improve people's lives.
Yeah.
It's the economy, stupid, right? Go ahead. Sorry.
That's fine. JJ, wait, how come they can ask for weapons to protect one's home, but the USA is trying to take the people's weapons?
Great.
That was in reference to Ukraine.
That was to Ukraine.
Great question. Yeah.
Yep. Friend Xaver Joseph Conrad Graf von Hostendorf. Generals in UK claim mobilization in Russia on BBC.
Oh, of course, the BBC. Your most trusted name in news. Like literally an extension of MI6 and the British intelligence state is BBC now. BBC has gone off the rails. Watch my interview with Vanessa Beeley where we dissected their disgusting piece of like laundry list of propaganda over the past few years.
Daniel Rodriguez, Mercosur did not let the comedian Zelensky do his show in the middle of his meeting. I'm not sure what that's
Who
referencing.
is that?
I don't know.
Okay. We'll look into that. Thank you very much.
The Iranian Putin, he bought Cuban for dinner. Actually, I haven't had Cuban food
delicious.
in a while. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Brizzy864, faithful watcher and member.
Thank you so much. And while we're sharing, I made a pesto out of my radish leaves that I grew for dinner.
So
that sounds yummy.
Okay, so
nice.
South America's Mercosur trade bloc, that's what he was specifically talking about, has denied Zelensky's request to address their summit, which is surprising, right? Because think how many of these like summits that you end up having now where you have like, Zelensky's on the big screen. Like he's up here, he's zooming into another meeting where he's going to ask for money and weapons, but South America is like, no thanks, no, we don't want you.
We got our own problems.
Paraguay said, no, we don't need you there.
That's an interesting story.
We're
Thank
good.
you for pointing that out. I'm going to put it in tomorrow's newsletter.
Yes, we will have more coverage of that tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.
Mind of Jamal, the black Southerner. The problem is Republican states aren't fighting for their state citizens. Republican states should demand their state citizens released from D.C. jail. Aquet.
Okay,
Sorry, we're gonna respond to that, or
maybe they're talking about the January 6th
yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
uprising and people who have been put in jail for that.
But most of those people aren't putting. It's not like they're going to federal. Like it. I mean, they're in state. They're being tried in their states,
Yeah.
aren't they?
So okay, then I
So
don't understand the context. I apologize.
I don't know. Maybe. Aquet Etekemba Etio. I'm sorry if I'm ruining your name. We should please have an interview with the spokesman of Biafra, Mr. Simon Epka, base in Finland. He is a Finn politician, lawyer leading 77 Biafrans.
Okay.
Laura Reeves. I'm Italian, lived in the UK for 20 years, Mexico for 5 years, Netherlands for the past 6. Politicians are gross. Oh, yeah, you read that one. That was a good one. Politicians are gross everywhere. Nemanja Stojanovic. You should see how Rio Grande was pushed out of Serbia lithium deposits and how people rise against government to sale it, foreign government. The new Joe. Russia's laws are similar to Florida's.
Okay.
Jaden. Jaden, the virus was about the vaccines. The vaccines are about quantum photonic semiconductors and Internet 3.0. Altogether, it's about a global internet based on blockchain. I still want to see the science on this.
Yes. Okay.
I
With
think
Bill
he
Gates.
brings up the I think he brings up the quantum photonic semiconductors daily.
Okay.
Kathy, yeah, and so Kathy Mello, just because.
Oh, thank you so
Kathy.
much.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah. Oh, we just got breaking news. You know how we had Pizza Rat in New York City? Well, now we have rat versus pigeon. This just broke just a few moments ago. Rat versus pigeon. I've never seen a rat literally take down a pigeon before. This is New York City. When you walk through the streets of New York City, you will see rats all over the place. What happens?
If I saw that,
Can you imagine seeing
when
that?
Clayton and I met and we were living in New York City, those Roman sandals were in,
my
and
God.
Clayton was like, when are Roman shoes going to go out of style? Because he really didn't like the ones that looked like a gladiator sandal. And I wouldn't wear them because I was like, it's gross around here. There's so many loogies on the ground.
Yeah.
And I didn't want my feet exposed like that. And so I absolutely, when I see that, it reminds me of why I never wore many sandals when I
Like these
lived in
types of
Manhattan.
things. Like these types of things. Yeah, like these types of like Roman sandals. Where like,
Clayton really didn't like those.
like yeah, I mean, who?
I want some of those.
Who are you to talk about fashion, but you don't have to like it?
Yeah, like so you're gonna walk through New York City with your feet basically touching the
With
same ground
that
where
happening,
where rats are attacking pigeons.
I would wear those.
I thought that's why pigeons grew wings, because they are like rats with wings, so they can fly away from that
I
mess.
guess that one was
They
named.
were
You would
pissed.
wear those, Philip?
When he does his jousting.
Yeah,
You
I
like
would
those
actually.
Roman
Like I
shoes?
wear sandals. I wear sandals as long as snow isn't touching my feet. I wear sandals.
Yeah.
And so
I do like the
those ones right
sandals.
there. Like those ones right there, I would totally wear those.
You would gladiators.
This does not look practical. There's so many straps to lace up. You could just get slides.
I mean, I would probably wouldn't take them off once I got them on. I'm just like, this is who I am now. I'm just gladiator feet guy, and I'm cool with that.
Beyond 280 says I'd rock those. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So back to super chats. Anita Thorenson, Gates going for Soylent Green.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Knight, thank you for being conspiracy theorists. We need more like you. Heart.
Okay.
Alaska, it takes more courage to admit defeat, do the honorable thing, and save what's left of your country while you can. Zelensky can stop the war and killing. He will lose anyway.
Yeah, we got word actually too that there was like Russia movement towards peace back in like a couple of months ago, and that and Ukraine was basically forced not to go into a peace agreement. Of course, Boris Johnson flying there, telling them, "Hey, do not negotiate a peace." So just allow people to continue to die is basically what he was saying. Easy for Boris Johnson to say, right?
Yep.
Someone says in our chat,
Lolos,
Agent 43 says, I've seen a bird fly away with a cat before. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, some birds like raptors, like eagles, stuff like that, can carry goats and kids.
I've seen them pick up children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So Lolos, I think the plan of Gates need to be the main issue for conservatives. Oh, you already read that one.
We got that one.
Comrade Kim SD, don't ask me how or why, but you've been nuked. And then the mind blown.
That's
emoji.
That of course was the New York City
Yep.
nuclear ad.
Oh, right.
Right. Don't ask us how or why, but a nuclear bomb has just gone off in Manhattan.
And like seriously, if it happens, don't ask us how or why. Just we don't want to talk about it.
It almost doesn't matter.
Just go on Twitter.
It doesn't matter.
Hang out in your room, and if part of your body is on fire, just cover it with a blanket.
Mind of Jamal, yes, he was talking about January 6th, or the 6th of January.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
So, yep. And that concludes Super Chats.
And that, my friends, concludes this show, which is called Redacted. It's called Redacted for a reason, because we cover the stories that you might not see in the mainstream media. We try to uncover the truth. Our goal here is truth, right? We're seeking truth. That's why at the beginning of our show, we have a 30-minute countdown before the show starts to welcome you all in. It says we're seeking truth, because that's our goal. We don't have all the answers, but we sure would like the answers, wouldn't we?
Yes, we're seeking answers. So this wraps up our live show for the week. We don't do a live show on Friday. Next week, we will be taking another personal week, so we won't be live, but we will have content for you. We will have newsletters every day, so make sure you're signed up for the free newsletter at redacted.inc and look out for our content, exclusive members-only content, and also continuing content here on the channel. And we will be back here live 1 week, not 1 week from today.
But we will be back next week. The week after. Yes, we're taking a few days.
Our firstborn, our baby boy, our baby man, our little pumpkin, he's turning 12, you guys.
Can't believe it. So big birthday,
12 for our firstborn.
little birthday surprise for him. Yeah. So.
My baby,
yes,
my lammy whammy, my honey bunny.
He
12.
loves when you call him those names.
I know. Sometimes I'll send him a
Mom,
text.
get away.
Like, you okay, baby man? He's like, not in front of my friends.
Don't call me baby man in front of my friends.
You call him baby man.
Yeah, get out the bottle. Hold him. All right, everyone. Much love to all of you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for making us a part of your afternoon, your evening, wherever you are across the world. Be safe, be kind to each other, and put on your Roman sandals. It's there's a lot of rats and there's a lot of pigeons out there. We'll see you again, everyone. Bye.